You're listening to White Noise with your host, Drip, 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 Drip.
Damn, we back?
We're back after almost 2 months off because took a break for BRP 50.
It's been a minute. Yeah, it's been a minute.
And I went on my hiatus. But welcome back to White Noise.
Shouts,
I'm your host, Drip.
Trip, are you good? Everything's good?
What was the joke you wanted to say beforehand?
Well, I that's one of those things that we need to save
For the actual show?
until we get into what we're talking about.
But no, I mean, I will. I'll just kind of. I mean, people will be listening to this at a later date. I've kind of would probably explain things by then, because a lot has kind of changed in the way of things, especially for me. But yeah, I'm back. Who knows for how long is this time?
We'll see. Now, you know what?
It's always this time until the next time.
But I think it's why. I mean, we've only done like 5 of these, 6 of these on like, you know, a real random note. But I think that's why it may need to be like seasons. You know what I'm saying?
Also, if we didn't have your P50 come right up, we would have had 4 more by now, because I was doing work with the videos for that. You were doing the articles. Fam and Mimi were doing others. I mean, Fam has something else. You know, check something else out.
Exactly.
Mimi has turnbuckle talk. Her regular life. Congrats again to her son graduating from college, and math again. The whole, conductor of the BRP 50 and the merch. Patreon again. You're listening to this on Patreon first. Your shipment should be arriving.
That's from. But at this point, I know math is working on that stuff. Again, there's other things going on, but trust the process is all I'll say. But it's good to be back, man. It's good to be back here. It's good to see you.
You haven't seen me in a while. Now I look completely different, which is both what? And it's both real life and it kind of plays in. But like I've been wanting to. So obviously the thing about me now is I have blonde hair, but I've been wanting to do this for about 4 years, realistically.
Seriously, wow.
Yeah.
And then you saw Ryan Gosling. You were like, yo.
It was after seeing him 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
No,
okay,
legit.
Okay.
So Place Beyond the Pines is 2013. I'm like, oh, my dad had went blonde once when I was a kid, but he had like the real darker yellowy golden blonde.
Ah, okay. It's Irish, yeah. You can only do so much at a certain point.
He died. It looked bad, and I remember like he dropped us off one weekend. The next weekend he picked us up, and me and my brother looked at him like,
the hell is that?
What happened to you? Like,
some of those genes are too strong, and he probably would have had to go to a whole salon and have somebody.
Well, I went to a whole salon. I was there for almost 2 hours yesterday. Yeah, and it looked bad at first, and then she's like, "We should do some more work." I'm like, "I agree."
Wait, when you say it looked bad, was it like Ric Flair?
No, because this is what's I was kind of going for.
Yeah, the Ric Flair.
It's close to platinum without being white. Right. I think just for my skin, it would be too much.
No, fact.
That's why I didn't do the sides either.
Good.
Like, because I'm almost, once if it were to grow out, I'd probably have the Zach Morris, but just not as dark.
Yeah. Which
is also kind of, I guess, a low-key influence from growing up watching Saved by the Bell reruns. I mean, like, Zach Morris is the coolest guy ever with sweaters, Kelly Kapowski, and fucking blonde hair. Like,
he had a whole fucking phone, and
the Paul Heyman phone, and again, he spoke to the camera, so that's a whole other thing too. Where like he was the smart-ass genius.
Fourth wall.
But so this has been going on like for 4 years. I'm like, one day I should do it, and then I guess the impulse of why now is like. Everything's been going on, it's like it'll either be now or never. Because I don't want to wait too late when I have no hair or it's thinning,
or you're too old to look weird with platinum blonde
and that's
hair.
Thing, I don't want to be 36 and like that's the real like you're having a crisis. Like I had told someone like the real sign of me having a crisis. I'd said this once years ago. Like if I'm super into God, no offense to anyone that is super religious, but if I come out of nowhere like
if you are,
like Shawn Michaels after 2002, then you should be worried about me. But also, if I get a motorcycle out of nowhere, because that's just me having a death wish, like I would die
on
10 minutes in on a or even a moped, anything that's not a car. You should be worried about me completely. Like, nope, get him out of there, like because he won't be able to
I don't. Well, the thing is, I don't want it because, like, we don't speak a lot, but we do speak on a fairly, regular basis. And I didn't get, like, I just figured Drip is going through something, but I know people have been concerned. People will be concerned, and I said, hey, I'm going to be talking to Drip soon. I know I know.
You know what was going on, but I didn't tell until last Sunday because Matt and I had a good conversation Friday night. Whereas we're like, I wasn't ready to tell everyone what was going on until I told someone else, and then I can feel comfortable telling everyone else what was going on.
Okay.
So that kind of like it's not even like you and I never talk. We always talk. It's just I wasn't really willing to talk about this stuff yet.
No, I understand. I completely understand.
Well, it's the life stuff, but again, taking a break from all the pods, which is what I did, was needed also just for like BRP 50, regular BRP, Banks versus Davis, all Elite with Keeks was just running, and then something personal happened, and then I find out I have a hernia, which I always kind of was figuring out in the last like month without even really figuring out, because I'm like, this thing here is it's not going away. Yeah. It's not causing pain. It's just like discomfort. But I'm not like, but I'm like, this just feels weird. Like I got to get seen at some point and figure it out. But I'll explain this. By this time you're listening to this, what will be I'll say final episode of Banks versus Davis will kind of be addressing this as well. So you'll be hearing it 2 times. But White Noise is back, and White Noise potentially going forward will be weekly. I kind of have that same elements of me doing what I was doing at Banks versus Davis, which is in a creative separation with Banks, and again, that will be addressed there. Mm-hmm. It's just me kind of bringing more elements of what I was doing there with movies, TV, other pop culture interests, anything else that I've been into, to White Noise, to Black Wrestling, because there was after we did Cole Corver, White Noise episode 3 about Adam Cole, Matt had said, Wise Man number 3 had said, White Noise doesn't just have to be wrestling, it's like, I know you like talking wrestling and the wrestling you like, but like it's whatever you want it to be. And then last week you said it's your show, you can do whatever the fuck you want. That's when I'm like, well, then again, y'all fucked up, because you better get ready to talk about the Gray Man, because that's what we're doing this week.
Yeah, I will say I
know you were, which is why I'm kind of like excited to talk about this with you.
I'm into pop culture. Like, we're again, the date when we're recording this, it's like San Diego Comic-Con weekend.
Which is our next episode.
We're MCU. We'll get into all this at some point, but I'm always interested, and I don't know if I missed the hype for the Gray Man, but
I was the only one doing the street team work for the Gray Man the last 2. It's probably when Netflix dropped that whole what our year looks like back in
teaser.
Yeah. Well, no, it was like everything Netflix was doing this year. Banks and I did a whole episode about it because we're like, they have a Jamie Foxx fucking vampire movie where he's hunting vampires. They have
that shit looks crazy, but it's probably gonna be.
They have a Jennifer Lopez movie. They have all this going on. And most importantly, they had the Gray Man, which, looking it up, I had forgotten they announced this during the pandemic. It was announced that in July 2020 that the Russos, Chris Evans, and Ryan Gosling were getting together to make a spy espionage action thriller. And I'm like, did someone incept my brain? Because this is the shit I write down in my notes. I'm like, oh, what's a cool movie idea? Like, who would be in it? Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans, of course. Like,
I totally missed this. Yeah, it's definitely got reported on my former employer. They definitely reported on that July. $200 million Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans thriller.
Exactly. And it's like, this will be the most expensive movie Netflix has made to this point. But before that, it was Bright, which was like, whew.
Yeah, awful.
Yeah. And the Gray Man more or less is better than Bright, but not great.
Gray Man is better than Bright. When I saw somebody say, they said they're trying to make this
be better than Bright.
It's not no Bright. The ceiling is the fucking floor. It's like, you can do anything and be worlds above Bright. But people they're trying to make this a series.
So this is based off a series of books. Spy Guy, who kind of then went on to shepherd the latest Tom Clancy books. Once Tom Clancy passed, he's kind of like shepherded his, but like he's kept the Gray Man going on. So let me read the first premise of the first Gray Man book.
Okay.
Because it'll be different than the IMDb premise
for the movie.
So here's what the book says. The novel follows Gentry on a mission across Europe to rescue his handler, Sir Donald Fitzroy. Already a difference because this man is played by Billy Bob Thornton in the movie, who is not a sir.
That was awkward.
And his family in Normandy, France, from Lloyd, a member of a gigantic French corporation and a former CIA officer who wants Gentry terminated in order to shepherd a $1 billion deal for oil interests in Nigeria, where its president, in turn, wants Gentry dead for the assassination of his brother. That movie is not this movie.
That has a whole, like...
That's a book.
Yeah. There's a lot going on there. This is literally just... This, when I started watching it, and... Because I mean, it opens with this ill-ass fight scene, and they do a lot of weird camera shit. We'll get to that in a minute. The camera shit's crazy, but they've got this ill-ass fight scene. I'm like, yo, this movie's really about to be John Wick if it was directed by Baz Luhrmann. Like it was, you've got the rockets, red glare.
I have like the perfect thing because let me read the IMDb premise real quick. There's 2 IMDb premises, which is also a bad sign.
Oh no!
When the CIA's most skilled operative, whose true identity is known to none accidentally uncovers dark agency secrets, a psychopathic former colleague puts a bounty on his head, setting off a global manhunt by international assassins. That's more accurate.
Yeah.
Because in turn, it's like no one knows who Sierra 6 is, aka Ryan Gosling, aka Court Gentry, because they only say his name once and everyone calls him Six.
I'm
Six.
Wait, hold up. Well, yeah, I know you like that, but I'm mad that you put the blonde man and you didn't put Sierra Drip.
No, when I saw you put Sierra Drip, I'm like, I was trying to think of something with Sierra 6, but I'm like, I was gonna do Drip Sierra 6.
I was walking home thinking about this, and Sierra Drip was immediate.
That's when you and I get around the same wavelength without knowing it. With like last week, you had said I gotta cut out the video of Powerhouse. How I was doing, talk to him when Ricky Starks was going off, and that's the highlight video I had made. And then the one about the tag team conversation when Mimi and was pro Usos, and Matt was pro FTR. And then everyone was like, well, don't forget the Street Profits. And you and Matt Fan were kind of like Street Profits, New Day. Let's not forget them in this whole dynamic. But I made those 2 videos separate without knowing you would want to cut those clips out and make it just works for like, and that's where we don't talk, but we talk. Like,
in fact, it's all telepath. Hopefully, by the time this is up, maybe I would have cut those clips. Maybe this week would be.
But all right, so here's the other premise: Court Gentry, aka Sierra 6, a highly skilled former CIA operative, was once the agency's best merchant of death. After his escape from prison and recruitment by former handler Donald Fitzroy, Gentry is now on the run from the CIA with agent Lloyd Hansen hot on his trail, aided by Danny Miranda. Hansen will stop at nothing to bring Gentry down. That's half right. He doesn't escape from prison. He's broken. They broker a deal. He's basically, it's the Suicide Squad is what it is.
They walked him out. They basically walked him out. Yeah, they just had to do some dirt.
And he is, but again, and the whole point about Chris Evans, Lloyd Hansen, is that he's a guy who flamed out for being uncontrollable at the CIA, where he's again this psychotic nutso who
5 months he just went there to torture people, basically.
Well, they're like, it's like when a team signs a guy and halfway through this is like, this isn't a good fit. It's like when Lance Stevenson left Indiana to go to Charlotte. Halfway through Charlotte's like, we were sold a bag of goods, like.
Get this man the fuck out of
like
here.
Lance Stevenson only could play for Larry Bird's regime. He couldn't play for everyone else.
That's crazy.
So it's like they were half right on both. It's like, which is like, did Netflix mislead them, or are they just again? This is we see what happens at Comic-Con. So and so is going to be there, so no one shows up.
Yeah.
Wrestling. Brock Lesnar has left SmackDown in 9:57.
That's crazy. But you saw this movie in theaters, right?
So that's the thing. So while on my in the shadows hiatus, I would tweet cryptic shit or like post shit on Instagram, not show my face. And one of the things I was like, I saw The Gray Man, and he's like, why is no one in your theater? I'm like, hell, I went to a theater 30 minutes away because they were showing this movie here, and instead of me waiting a week, because I wanted to prep beforehand. And seeing it in the theater, I left like very like, yep, that wasn't good. Watching it at home, I'm like, a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the Netflix effect, but also like in the theater, some of these sequences are super hard to see.
There's a lot going on.
It's so dark in the theater, and then so at home these sequences are somewhat better. I don't know if it's just I
It's because it's one of the, just like Red Notice and some of these other films were like, you know, like when I have a crunch and I'm like, yo, I've got it, it's on my phone, so I'm watching on my phone, brightness all the way up, subtitles on. Like I don't play, and it was perfectly fine. It was a little long. 2 hours and 9 minutes is a little too much for what we ended up getting in terms of a story.
To be honest, I'm like there needed to be more. To be honest,
you wanted more sequences of Ryan Gosling just getting stabbed like 20 times.
What I wanted is that if you have the image of Chris Evans, can you post that up right now?
One sec.
Is that we don't really get to see Chris Evans be a badass until him and Gosling finally show down. Like he's just kind of this prick who tortures people, but like his torture methods are like, all right, I guess you're, you know, vindictive or evil. Like
I don't
it's
know.
very basic, but he is killing it as this over the top villain.
I wish they had, who wrote this film? I wish he got some better lines.
No, so you know who made this movie are the guys.
So bad.
The guys who made Winter Soldier,
yes,
and Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame are responsible for this movie, and it's like, are you sure? Like
they needed somebody. If you're gonna make Lloyd the witty psychopathic torturer dude, and those lines got to be good because a lot
to me they were based off his delivery where he's like, she's like, there are rules. He's like, well, rules don't mean dick to me. Because his delivery is like selling it, and he's got this mustache, like, and as you've seen, and it like I'm almost like, should I grow? I'm a Boston cop mustache because
I mean I want we chart that progress, so that'll be a special white noise.
Again, I was going to scruffy. You guys saw I was like not shaving for. Again, I was doing the full like
super scruff. Matter of fact, because this is all new. Literally yesterday, it went from scruff.
I had 3 different looks in this.
There was a transformation. I'm actually thinking it's funny because Thursday was super scruff, and anyway. But it looked like Chris Evans at least got into it. Like it's similar with Knives Out, where he doesn't have to be Buzz Lightyear or whatever. He doesn't have to be fucking Captain America. He can just be this quirky little dude.
That's why I felt like the Russo brothers and then the screenwriting duo of Marcus and McFeely felt like they owed Chris Evans for being the, you know, strong chin, you know, I'm an all-American good guy. Like you should play like you should play the bad guy. It's like we're gonna create something for you where you can be the bad guy, like have all the best lines because you have to be like, you know, the man of honor again, who like he's my friend Tony when in Civil War and they have that fight and all that. And that was the thing. After watching it last Friday in the theater, Saturday I watched Winter Soldier and Civil War for the first time in a while. And I'm like, the action again is so bright. A lot of these sequences are set during the day.
Yep.
There's not as quick cutty, even though at that time the Russos didn't have that much experience of action because they directed Community, Arrested Development, a lot of episodes for TV. They'd done like 2 small films that no one really cared about.
Right.
Which we'll speak into next week with Ethan Hawke's comments of Marvel doesn't hire like directors, which is a fucking fact. Except Ryan Coogler.
Yeah,
look at that trailer. Yesterday, like this man made an Oscar film that's like disguised as like a superhero movie.
This man made an Oscar film disguised as a Marvel movie trailer. That shit was like 2.5 minutes, and it felt like a 5-10 minute thing. Like I'm
like, is this Kingdom of Heaven? Like, what is it like?
This is Thank You, Chadwick. You know what I mean? Like it really feels
like you could totally like there's like you know, again 2 warring countries at, you know, like that's what this movie is basically in Wakanda Forever. But it's like that they have superpowers. Like a guy will control the ocean, and the other country will have this impenetrable suit and these superhuman powers. That's like, oh shit. But again, it's like shot like he made a Ridley Scott film. Like,
it looks dope. The underwater sequences look crazy. I'm low-key calling it Black Avatar. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, Ryan Coogler, Bay Area legend, beat James Cameron to the punch with the underwater sequences a month early after James Cameron spent 10 years making this movie. And Ryan Coogler was like, I'm going to make it without my lead star and in a year and a half. Like
Black Avatar is about to be hard. Watch.
And it's all women.
It's all women.
And that's when like, oh my god, this looks amazing. It's just like
the Wakanda Atlanta stuff is ill. It'll be interesting to see how they do it in the movies and how that all ties into the multiverse saga.
That's what we're getting away. That's next week with hopefully Tham. And I reached out to the man responsible for the White Noise intro, Lord Vader, Sham himself. He should be joining us.
That'll be hard.
I asked him. He said say less. So we're just hopefully the times work out for all four of us.
Those two with us on White Noise would be fun. Pay the 1 or pay the 10.
Keep paying the 1. Keep paying the 10. Don't stop. Can't stop.
It salutes everybody who already is. I'm not going to tell Vin, but if Vin sees this and you see a clip, I didn't tell him to do it. That's all I'm saying.
It's crazy. He's like, can't stop. Just that's a little shimmy.
Okay, we get the back. Let's get back.
So, like you said, that's all the preamble to this movie. Like Netflix, they didn't drop the trailer till sometime in May, and I'm like, oh fuck! Like it was a great trailer. Not since Need for Speed have I been sold a great trailer where I was like, oh my god, this movie's gonna be fucking fire. And then the movie's like, oh no. BVS, but that was also like the ultimate hype of like years of Batman and Superman.
Yeah.
They were, that's just a different kind of like building up hype yourself.
To be disappointed.
You were well aware of the ultimate disappointment I had last year with F9 not being what I thought it was going to be. But that was because John Cena was finally in a Fast and the Furious movie, which was something I never would have conceived in 2009. Like,
they bricked that. They bricked the hell out of that.
And the crazy thing is the guy who shot a majority of the Fast and Furious movies, Stephen F. Winden, shot this. And I'm like, there's only one really like car chase, and it's not good when she's following him while he's on the tram, and it's kind of going back and forth, and he's kind of doing again John Wick kill shot stuff. He's killing guys through reflections, and he shoots a guy's legs out from under him while he's passing through on the tram. It's again decent, but I guess the thing that is kind of segueing into this because on Friday, with the image dropped. Because I saw you post it first of John Wick 4, and it's almost like a Griselda cover. I'm like, holy shit!
That image is hard. I'm sorry, cut you. Right before John Wick 3, I signed up for because I was so fucking into John Wick, and I was like, I need this third movie. I'm editor of this site. I'm be all over this shit, and we did a couple of good things with that. There's one big piece that they still. Anyway, I signed up to get like text messages for new John Wick shit, and the alert came, and they were like, "Yo, John Wick, he cordial invite," and it was just that image. I said, "This shit is about to be hard." And then the San Diego Comic-Con trailer dropped. He threw an axe, yo.
I don't care about the axe. Him and Donnie Yen are shooting bullets and blocking them with swords. I'm like, oh my fucking!
That shit was hard. That shit was hard.
It's got Hiroyuki Sanada and Donnie Yen having a fucking samurai sword fight. And I'm, as someone who likes sword fights in movies, like, bring that shit back. Like, The Princess Bride was 1988. Like, we need more sword fights. Like,
No, John Wick 4 is going to be hard. I'm sorry.
So that's it. So, like, the gray man having to compete with the John Wicks of the world it's always going to be tough. Even though John Wick 3 has problems in the middle.
Yeah.
And kind of towards the end, but that's because once the movie ended and I saw there were 4 screenwriters, I'm like, that's where they went wrong. Too many cooks in the kitchen, because this movie felt like it was jumping all over the place and had different tones. But John Wick 2 is the ultimate action masterpiece. And I put the image of all the directors, if you would, Cal. But that's what I mean. So these guys. So on the bottom left is Chad Stahelski, director of all the John Wick films. Again, famous stunt choreographer, stuntman himself for Keanu Reeves. Next to him is David Leitch, uncredited co-director of the first John Wick. Then went on to do Atomic Blonde, underrated action film, with Charlize Theron from 2017.
Atomic Blonde has some great sequences. I didn't love the film, but there were some great sequences.
Simple story, so I don't hate it. Like, it's a simple story with great scenes, action scenes, which is like all I kind of want if you're going to do that. And then next to him in the middle is Gareth Evans, director of The Raid and The Raid 2, and has a movie come out this year for Netflix supposedly called Havoc with Tom Hardy, and it's like a man who has to go into the underground crime world and rescue someone. So it's going to be like Tom Hardy doing John Wick. Yeah, again, Netflix hasn't said anything about that yet, but if it's the guy who made The Raid with Tom Hardy, like, fucking sold. And Gareth Evans made this film for Netflix prior called Apostle, a weird kind of dark horror movie and set on, like, I think in Wales where he's from. It's strange. It's got a good action sequence for a minute, but it's a different vibe from his previous work.
Yeah.
Next to him in the glasses and hat is Matthew Vaughn, director of the Kingsman films, who I think shoots action the best when it comes to the camera movement following the action, and there's not as much cuts as it's just planned choreography. Might be some CGI enhancement with the camera being able to go in all these different angles, which is why even if you have problems with Kingsman 2 and the Kingsman, the action's phenomenal.
Yeah, they get the action right in those films, yeah.
And he did, and the first Kick-Ass is, again, great action movie. I mean, X-Men First Class is the best X-Men movie to me, and Matthew Vaughn directed that before, and then would have gone on to direct the rest if Bryan Singer didn't come and fucking usurp that shit back from him. Right. That's a whole nother thing. And then James Wan, who did Furious 7, which is the best overall action movie out of the Fast and Furious films, then did Aquaman, which is the best overall action movie of all the DC films. Again, same style with like the camera movement following, choreography, CGI tricks. And then I don't know if you watched it last year, Kyle. I watched it a couple weeks ago, but Malignant.
I did not see Malignant.
You should. There is a scene in Malignant where like the horror monster thing of Malignant just is like stabbing fucking people, and it's an action film, like it's fucking John Wick, and it's like insane. It's like,
I did hear this was a good film. I did hear it was good.
But it's like this. I'm like, is this guy kind of wasting his time with horror movies when he could be like the best action director of this decade? But I mean, horror is his shit, so I understand. But like,
they were even gonna spin off, because you mentioned Aquaman. The Trench. The Trench. They were that scene when they were all coming up in the water was ill. And when I saw that and they said we're gonna make a Trench film, I said yeah.
But that would have been like how we have Morbius and how we're gonna get Kraven the Hunter. That's what they wanted to do with the Trench. I'm like, we don't need that based on me not seeing Morbius, never seeing Morbius. I'm not gonna see fucking Kraven the Hunter. No offense to JC Chandor.
I gotta watch that. Kraven's a hard character. I could see Sony fucking that up.
Yeah, but at top is kind of the man who has dominated the action genre last decade with Jack Reacher, underrated. Jack Reacher the movie.
Yeah, Tom Cruise is that guy.
Yeah, but then Rogue Nation, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation with him and Tom Cruise teaming up again. And then the fucking minute-to-minute Mission Impossible Fallout of just like nonstop, like this shit is pinnacle. You couldn't do it any better than that. And that's Chris McQuarrie, who listen to Chris McQuarrie talk on any podcast or any interview. It's phenomenal, especially when it comes to like screenwriting, directing, which is like, oh yeah, I can never do this when this guy breaks it down.
Right.
And what he says is like, I have to compete with the James Bonds of the world. I have to compete with the Fast and the Furious movies, and that's hard. But what I do have is a guy who is willing to do this himself, and Tom Cruise.
Exactly.
So Tom Cruise will fly this helicopter. Tom Cruise will fucking ride this motorcycle off a cliff, and all that, which is why the action in those movies are so good. Is even though the hand-in-hand isn't always its best thing, but did have the fucking bathroom fight with Henry Cavill, which the Gray Man tries to recreate when they're in the hospital scene with Ana de Armas and Ryan Gosling versus Danush. And it's a good scene, but it's not the bathroom scene.
It's not the bathroom scene, bro.
Yeah, bathroom scene, it's lit like the white noise background. It's like, it's all these, fluorescent lighting, and we can see Henry Cavill load his fists.
It was the bathroom scene is the most memorable thing from the trailer. When I first saw the trailer, I remember them fighting and all the fucking water splashing and all the shit in the room. Yeah.
But I think it's so like, and the other image I have is of the Russo brothers, if you put it up. So like, what I realized from watching The Gray Man, I didn't watch Cherry, their previous film, which was going to be like their post MCU. We're going to make a serious film. It's about.
I heard it wasn't good either.
It's got like a 37 on Rotten Tomatoes, which isn't the end all be all, because I like movies that have low Rotten Tomato scores. We all kind of have either trash favorites or movies that get the consensus is wrong. But like the whole thing is, they try to make a serious film. It didn't work out. They got Tom Holland. It was based off of a famous book by a guy who was a war veteran who then robbed banks to feed his opioid addiction. And it was kind of like, we're going to do something serious after, almost 10 years of making CGI Marvel movies. Like, we're going to do something real and grounded. And, with, good old Tom Holland and Kevin Feige, I think like, all right, go ahead. But I think what we realized, like, as good as, again, Civil War, Winter Soldier, Infinity War, and Endgame, I think these guys are game managers, being the Russo brothers. They're only as good as the players they have. And I think Kevin Feige is the overseer of everything. So it's like the Russo brothers, all you got to do is not turn the ball over.
Well, I was going to say maybe, this is such a terrible,
it's
a terrible comparison at this point where we are in the world, but maybe Feige's low-key the Vince McMahon to the Russo brothers, Vince Russo.
I think that's what it is, yeah.
They even did R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman, we mentioned him earlier. They even did that, what was it, 21 Bridges or whatever?
They produced it.
They've not directed a lot, but they've been producing a number of things.
They did the pilot to the Deadly Class, which is that short-lived show on Sci-Fi, which is a famous or like underrated like comic graphic novel,
underrated. The show wasn't bad. I liked the show. I was actually kind of pissed that it didn't get it got canceled after that first.
But they had their hands in that. They produced 21 Bridges, a movie which is kind of like a spiritual brother to The Gray Man is Extraction, which came out in 2020 with Chris Hemsworth doing something similar to The Gray Man, where he's like this badass action guy who has to save a kid in the Middle East. One of the Russo brothers wrote it.
Oh, okay.
And the guy who did all the stunts for Chris Evans and controlled the whole stunt team, Sam Hargrave, directed Extraction. It was his directorial debut, and he'll be doing the sequel as well. And the Russo brothers are coming back to produce and co-write it. But it's almost like I'd say I recommend that on Netflix. It's again bad as a movie in terms of, like, again, it's cliches, which is kind of what The Gray Man is, like he's got to rescue a kid, which I think is the main thing in Hollywood now, where like all these guys, and it's not a bad thing, but like are fathers of daughters, so they want to rescue kids. I think that was the whole point of like No Time to Die, is that James Bond had to rescue.
But you know what? It was a Commando. He had to go get his daughter. Like Steve,
that kind of stopped for a while.
I think once, because it was, you had the Arnold Schwarzeneggers, the Steven Seagal was big on avenging his family. But yeah,
about like, the Jason Bourne franchise is like, the government used me and now I'm going to fight back against them. And
right, or
about family. They even then they did that. I got to rescue my son.
Right,
and Fast and Furious.
It went from I got to avenge my family or my loved one to I was used as a, whether it was the Matrix or the Jason Bourne stuff. The person being the one being scammed, and then they go against the system, and then it became people having to save the world. You know what I mean? It's
complicated. Yeah, that's why I think Mission Impossible sets the bar too high, because Tom Cruise is like, I'm just saving the world. Like, I'm not saving, even though Mission Impossible 3, my favorite, is him trying to save his wife at the end. But everything in 2 then is like, he's brought in for one last mission in his eyes, because he's like, I'm getting out. I have a life now. Which the whole point of the first John Wick, and the most simple action movie of all time, is a guy who's out gets brought back in because they kill his dog.
My dog stole my car.
But what makes John that? Stole my bike.
Stole my bike is funny. That's funny.
But John Wick 2, what makes that so better is like, the guy, he's like, all right, I did all this to get everything I had back. And the guy's like, well, you fucking owe me, is the reason, and that's the reason you had all that stuff to be. That's why it's so much better. He's like, it's the Vince McMahon thing. Like, hey, Brock, you're not getting away that easily. Say, or Goldberg, like, you're, just because you had one match doesn't mean you ain't gonna have 3 or 4 more. Again, but the Russos being, I'm gonna give them a little bit more credit compared to Vince Russo being let's give them 2 more films to call them Vince Russo. They turn out to be, because Vince Russo again went to WCW and it tanked all the way down. This is at least the most Netflix movie, because here's the problem again with Netflix movies is they're never great. What's your favorite Netflix movie, or what do you think is the best Netflix movie?
What's shit? The problem is the best Netflix movies are the ones that probably shouldn't have been released on Netflix. Like The Irishman is probably up there. Should I Love the Five Bloods? I really have to think. like Netflix, like the best. A while ago, I was supposed to do a list of the best original Netflix movies, and it never happened. But it's something that's Roma is probably somewhere up there. Something that's done by
Triple Frontier is a good action movie on Netflix that like would have maybe been a big deal in theaters, especially with the cast they had with Ben Affleck, Charlie Hunnam, Oscar Isaac, my guy Gareth Evans, and the fucking Mandalorian himself, Pedro Pascal.
Right.
And it was a movie that was trying to be made in theaters, but then Netflix was the ones like, we were going to be able to actually make this. But to me, my favorite, and I said this before, I think it's also the best one because it's my favorite kind of story, is High Flying Bird. But that's Soderbergh with his, like, I'm making movies on an iPhone. So, like, anyone who has $15 million or less to give me, and Netflix like, sure. Like,
yeah.
This isn't going to make any money in the theater, so we'll give it to you. And he's like, I know it won't.
That's kind of the thing. It's the thing that sucks about the stigma about the Netflix movie is a lot of at least in the early days, because they were still trying. Like Netflix has been raising money to create content to be seen as an original content creator. That was the whole point. That's why we have the HBO Maxes and all these other streaming services now, because they saw what Netflix was doing with their IP, and they said, "No, give that back. We can make our own."
They could have stayed, and it wouldn't have hurt anyone, as like the house for all these production companies. Like, you don't want to own cable. This movie will be on here for 6 months, and it will cycle through next year, but then they became low-key a TV channel. House of Cards, Orange is the New Black, all the other shows after that, and then they were like, we want it, but then now we want to be a movie studio, and then again they went and got the Cary Joji Fukunaga's to make a movie, the Alfonso Cuaróns, and then Spike Lee and Martin Scorsese. Like studios are going to give us that much to make these movies. Why not? Like we want the theater thing, which Joe Russo had said, like the whole theater is sacred, stigma that people have been shouting for the last kind of like 2 years or 5 years, really, with the whole Netflix thing of like, we'll be in theaters for a week, then on Netflix the week after, is bullshit. And I agree with that, especially even during quarantine, when it was like all these movies got delayed that were finished, got delayed a year out, basically 3 years if you're fucking Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
But then that made all its money, so we have to shut up about that movie in particular. But everything else, we can kind of like, hey, F9 didn't make as much as they thought it would. No Time to Die didn't make it as much as they thought it would. Mm-hmm. Some of the Marvel movies, flopped in, what they normally make.
Could have been more, yeah.
But what we all realize is like we're at home now, and it's only one service who really provides movies directly to the home, and that's Netflix. HBO Max broke the mold all last year, and they're like, our movies are going to be in theaters and on the service the same day. I didn't go to see any of the HBO Max movies in the theaters.
And a lot of people did the same thing. Yeah. A lot of people
and I should have to go support my guy Denis Villeneuve with Dune, but I didn't. Instead I bought a new TV that day so I couldn't watch it on a bigger screen. And then with the Suicide Squad, it's like James Gunn is making a DC movie, which is the best DC movie, and John Cena's in it. I watched it that Friday, rewatched it the Saturday morning because I could. I didn't have to go and pay $20 more to go see it in the theater. It was just right there for me that month, and then it was gone, and then it came back 5 months later. The thing with the Batman this year is they're so smart. Even though I'm still shocked it didn't make the money we all thought it would in terms of cracking the billion, it still made a shit ton of money. But I think that was the 3-hour runtime, and
I will say this: if it was I don't want to say this movie wasn't accessible, but maybe if it was more straightforward and wasn't a puzzle box to be solved.
They made the Detective Batman movies. Everyone's wanted them to make.
The Detective Batman movie that had like these low key like red pill alt-right types going up against the fucking something.
But it still has some of the best action this year.
You're not wrong, but what I'm saying is I think if the movie was a little bit more accessible, a little bit more of a straight ahead Batman film versus this, you walked into that film, you were basically walking into an experience. There was a whole detective tale you had to solve. You had to figure out what was going on in the mind of the rich man who was beating people up. Like there's a lot that was going on, and if you weren't ready to get on that ride like I was the first time I watched it, you might fall asleep. I was assuming that Batman was going to crack $1 billion, but as the conversation started going, and I don't want to say there was a split, but there were some people who were really into this film, and there were some people who were kind of like, I'm thinking
I
a
was
little
one
step.
of the few detractors the whole time being like, let's just finally wait until we see it. It was one of those things where like building hype, and that's something with the Gray Man. We're like, yes, like fucking Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans just beating the shit out of each other. They only do it. They only do it in the final 30 minutes, which is what I was somewhat angry about. Is like Face Off, one of the most iconic movies of all time for many reasons. The actors involved, which is again Gosling, Evans, Travolta, Cage. It's like they sold it with 2 name actors and then a bunch of like, hey, I recognize everyone else. Like that's so and so from this night. Like, and that's the problem with the Netflix thing, which I'll get back to. But like, the premise is what like they swap faces, but it's like, oh, okay, but there are a bunch of John Woo gunfights. Like now I'm fucking sold. Like that's what this movie I think low key should have been. They treat it like it's Heat. Like you don't get Pacino, De Niro until the end. There's one scene where after Ryan Gosling, again, this is spoiler alert for the Gray Man. Like once he's trapped and then you creates a shoe bomb to get out, he kills all these guys with with one shoe on and the scissors and then Chris Evans fucking one punches him, then sprays him with pepper spray and a funny like, oh, you're such a dick, like you got to pepper spray the guy, and then and Ryan Gosling's reaction is like, oh man, like I'm like you really stooped that low, and then that's supposed to be like their diner scene, along with all the phone calls they had before when he's like, hey sunshine, again, like it's good. Chris Evans like being super like, oh, like cupcake and like doing all these like, again, like I'm a piece of shit bad guy who's gonna kill you, but like come on, let's be friendly with each other. Like
I said, I think Chris Evans had a ball with this role. He doesn't get to be this type of person. I will say I'm kind of tired of the, I mean, cat and mouse, I guess is a good way to put it. Like, they're kind of, they're playfully bantering. I'm full. I just had some Skittles, and then the meme with
that
him
was
is
pretty
like,
good.
Skittles
at least
thing or whatever.
He did take the Skittles to swap with the phone, though. It's like at least play, like everything in this movie is made to play later. Like the whole like even the one thing that isn't is like when he tells her the story of Sisyphus without even saying it, because he is Sisyphus pushing the boulder up by working for the government. He'll never get out. But he basically says that's me without saying it. Then again, he plays it's just another Thursday, or he does the devil sign when he's on the stretcher after she was on the stretcher. Like,
but wait, like on some real shit, Drip. So the thing is with, and I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. Movies like this, like, because I'm a man of a certain age, a black man of a certain age living in America. Like at a certain point, like I'm too old to see myself as Ryan Gosling with the fucking gun running.
Should I get into the Ryan Gosling aspect of it? Okay.
I want to. So, like, is the connection for you your appreciation, whatever you want to call it, with Ryan Gosling, or is it the fact
Chris
that
Evans? Because I am one of the few, like, Chris Evans is great as Captain America, and like he's also great in all the other roles he did before and kind of during and after.
But is it more of a? But Gosling,
it's both. No, it's really both. Because
you're Sierra Drip.
But no, but like, so I did these 2 videos for BVD where I like cut clips from their movies to like build up again, like Gosling versus Evans, because that's how this movie sold. But I'm like, it's not until they finally have a really good fight scene at the end.
The fight scene is good,
which is like where it's like, I'm like, if you had given us one of that in the beginning where these guys had history. Again, like you and I could have been friends. Like that one premise I read you says that they were friends, and it's like, but again, so I'm like, if this movie again, if there were 2 guys I had a phone or like worked together once, and he's like, this is a psychopath, I'm never working with him again, and they shit can Lloyd, and then they go with Sierra 6 going forward, and then like when they like Sierra 6 is on the run, it's like Lloyd, the guy who's responsible for you getting out, you can get revenge. Like he's the one who should be getting the revenge and all that. Like
you could they could have justified that 2-hour plus runtime with like
even justifying him. Yeah, not by that's the only flashbacks they go to is like him saving the girl. And that's I'm like, oh, they really. I'm tired of like protector again. Like you said, like the commando. Like let's stop protecting. Like just let the 2 fucking guys like Godzilla come. Like let them fight. Like just go. Like again, like he fights him with 3 fingers on one hand, and then he breaks out the fucking butterfly knife and does it like, come on, and he kicks his ass with it. But I'm like, we don't get to see him be a badass until that moment where he's already like handicapped.
There's the one scene where again, as Sierra 6 was storming the castle to get the girl and get Fitz out, and Lloyd is right behind him, and he realizes that the fucking guards outside got killed by him.
Yeah, and morons.
He shot the dude and he kicked like that's. I kind of wished, again, like it's one thing to be like, this man's a psychopath and we just show him as a psychopath, but they kind of. I think they missed a couple
of. At that point, they did. There was again like, this guy's so deranged. He's killing, like, the guy's already dead and he's angry at them still. Yeah.
But like that, I mean, at that point, it's like, yeah, that's very in your face. I kind of wish beforehand we had gotten to, like, they started. I don't know, and I not knowing what the book is. I don't. I want to say, like, if the movie had started at a certain point, and again we got to see them interact, I think that would have made more sense than just a random cat and mouse that doesn't really pay off until is that supposed to be the end of Kill Bill 1? Them in that what's that big is that a water pond? What is that shit that they were fighting on?
It's in the middle of a hedge mage. It's like, oh shit, we're bringing back hedge mages for action movies and shit. Like, yes, like
Kill Bill Volume 1 in the middle of The Shining. Okay.
Yeah. So, but like, I think we're supposed to get he's bad is to go back to McQuarrie when McQuarrie talked about Mission Impossible Fallout, because he's someone who listens to test scores from the audience, and he's like, oh, we knew Henry Cavill was the bad guy halfway through, and Chris McQuarrie's like, how did you know he was the bad guy? And they're like, when he gives Angela Bassett the phone, and Chris McQuarrie's like, so you knew he's the bad guy in the scene where I'm telling you he's the bad guy. But then Chris McQuarrie says, like, he's the editor that Chris McQuarrie worked with, like, do they not realize he has a mustache? Like, he's a bad guy? Like, it's the bad guy mustache, like the old like, hey, and like Chris Evans having the Boston cop mustache, like, I'm the bad guy, like with this slick back hair. Again, like, the whole look,
the whole look.
Yeah, again, like when he says like the trash stash, the white pants, and like again, everything he says with like, he tells like, I know you're nervous with your puckered asshole and your voice trembling. So like, he's.
I wish I'd written. There was one line that he said that I there were a couple things I did not like the dialogue. There was one I was, but I was doing something.
The best is once he gets shot with the trick and he returns like, can anyone get me a Vicodin? And then he knocks all the shit down, and then she's like, why are you walking? And he's like, because I got shot in the ass, Suzanne. Like, again, he's just like having fun after being 10 years of like, I'm a man of honor. We do the right thing. Like, which is why they cast him to be Buzz Lightyear. Even though I haven't seen that movie, it's coming to Disney Plus soon, so I'll be able to finally watch it. But like, they cast him to be the voice of Buzz Lightyear because he's to infinity and beyond. Like, it's him doing the voice version of that.
No, don't forget, he's cast as the person in the movie that the Buzz Lightyear toy was based off of.
Which is the most amazing thing ever created. Is they're like, we're making a Buzz Lightyear movie. They're like, about the toy's like, no. The toy is actually based off a movie,
right?
Which I'm like, so I'm like, low key, that's genius. And it's reverse marketing.
It's genius, but like, it's not genius for the 5-year-old who just got in the Buzz Lightyear and doesn't know what the fuck.
Who only knows Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story? Yeah, like what is Star Command? Like people around my age were aware of the Buzz Lightyear Star Command TV show, which is kind of the Mandalorian in a way. It's the Mandalorian, Guardians of the Galaxy all rolled in one. And when you were on the first one, they called us Mad Men at the time. But your first appearance, when we broke the whole Disney slate, very similar to the Netflix slate this year. But like at that time, they announced again all these things for Hulu and ESPN that Disney was going to do, and most importantly, Disney Plus and what was going to be Marvel and what was already going to be Disney IP. And we had talked about the Buzz Lightyear thing, and it was it's just like at the time, it's like Chris Evans will be Buzz Lightyear. I'm like, they're making a mistake by not making the live action Buzz Lightyear movie with John Cena. Just do it already. Like it's right fucking there, especially after Peacemaker, when you can see him be like this guy.
Yeah, but he's saying too many 4-letter words in that show. Maybe they shied away from him being the.
No, John Cena's a good actor. We're not doing that right.
No. I'm just saying in terms of like kid friendly verse, because I mean Peacemaker's very.
Oh yeah. Oh, you mean that was kind of 4-letter words?
Yeah. No. I'm just saying.
They're treating him like Schwarzenegger in the Terminator. There's like 83 words.
No. Just in terms of adult themes and whatnot.
Well, here's what I mean. We're back to like Evans. Like he again is Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I mean, phenomenal as Lucas Lee, and he's the villain. He's got this goatee and all that, and then. I mean, Knives Out, as you said, he's great as Ransom the whole time. Like, he's the guy that you shouldn't like, but then at the end, we know why you shouldn't like him. And even though I don't hate those two Fantastic Four movies, he's great in them. They're just kind of like slapsticky, but also have decent action. It's that phase when like superhero movies hadn't figured out to do both. Only Sam Raimi knew how to do action comedy in superhero movies, and the X-Men movies were all serious with good one-liners, at least with the first X-Men and X2. And that's sort of like in that period. And then The Losers, he's great again, an underrated action movie where he's great. It's weird that Chris Evans is the brainy guy in The Losers and he still looks like Chris Evans. Like he's the guy on the comms. It's like Ving Rhames being Luther.
Wait, hold up. Because it's funny you mentioned him being the brainy guy. What a like pointless plot. Oh, I'm this. I was in the CIA. I got kicked out after 5 months because I was too violent. I'm in the private sector, and my only idea to get
is to hire other people.
The most dangerous, elusive. They called him a ghost. He's got no files. He's just
that's the best part. Like when he talks to Billy Bob Thornton, it's like, now you can't help me find it because this file doesn't exist. And then Regé-Jean Page throws down a file in front of Ana de Armas. She opens it. There's nothing inside. It's like, so it's so literal. I respect it. Like, again, they don't keep track because this man is a legit ghost. Like, they only call him 6. No one calls this man Court Gentry.
Again, in a film where you're like you said earlier, the payoff was going to be the build off to Lloyd.
Because the first action scene you would talk about, like, it's pretty bad. And it sucks because it's like, they didn't tell you who I am. He's like, they never do. He's like, I'm Sierra 4. I always love you versus your evil counterpart, which is, right. 006 and 007, Power Rangers versus the Psycho Rangers. Mission Impossible 2, why I like it so much.
Bruh.
Is oh, you mean I can't like Mission Impossible 2?
No. Keep going what you're saying.
Is the whole point that Doug Gray Scott as Sean Abrams is like, I know every move Ethan Hunt is gonna do. So like when Ethan Hunt is planning to break into this building, he's like, he won't want to kill people, so he'll think of the most safest route. And then Ving Rhames like, there's 20 guards in the building. He's like, I won't kill anyone. I'll go through the top. And then so like when you know every move you're gonna make, or you're the evil version of that, like Killmonger to T'Challa, or anything. So I like the evil
Gemini Man.
No, that's you fighting yourself. That's different.
But it was the same shit though. Like when they were in battle, but they were in battles. You had to figure out.
I still never saw Gemini Man.
Don't. The sequences from the trailers are the best parts. That was the first shit that I got to see, and like the shit where he jumped in the motorcycle.
Motorcycle, yeah.
But my thing is, for Lloyd to have been good enough to get to the CIA, but to be devious enough to get kicked out, and to be in the private sector long enough to, be an established dude where he don't give a fuck. He's just going to go out there and just do whatever he wants to do and get paid for it. I was kind of disappointed that, like you said, his plan was kidnap the only people that we know are connected to this guy because it's the only person that spoke to him, and then just hire a bunch of people to go after him. We know full well none of these people are going to go because he's bootleg John Wick. We know at some point these two are going to have to fight.
What's worse is when the lone wolf, basically played by Danush, who I think is like a big star, and he whips Six's ass. But at that point, Six is so beaten and bruised and all that from the past 2 days. It's like, this guy is the real gray man, or he's better than you, Lloyd. Like, what's the whole point of you? Like, and then
they was choking each other out and shit.
That's what's stupid. Like when you get to that point, like he lets her live. I think that's more of like Netflix was placating to the audience in India. Like, let's not make their biggest star the ultimate villain. It was one of those, like, remember when Hollywood was super into, like, we have to have a scene in China to make all the money in China, right, or we have to have cast this actor from China.
Of course.
Make a lot. That's, no offense to like, that's really literally what that whole character is for 2 scenes is
go look at what Presley's doing. He may be talking to certain outlets. I mean,
why did Tony Khan bring Satnam Singh in?
Why did
Jinder Mahal champion? Like, because there's an audience in this, and it's like that for every country.
But why did during the Mortal Kombat press junket I only got offer Dax. Like it is what it is. Like they're going to push. I mean, inclusivity, diversity. That's ill, but at a certain point, it's also beneficial because you can reach. Different areas, which is part of the point. Even though it can look trash when he's the only dude in the film, and it feels like that's the only reason. But I also think we spoke earlier. This is a book series. I've seen chatter about they want to make more of these films. Him doing that and then dipping is middle of part 2.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, my man is back, and we know he can battle because he almost choked Shorty out in the first film. Like, it all makes sense, but it felt corny. Like they didn't do it in any ways where I was like, that was interesting, or I kind of like that. It was like, yeah, I see what the fuck y'all doing, and I'm kind of tired of it.
But it's also things. So let's get into the real reason why I was also hyped. So it is. I already said the Chris Evans part. So the Ryan Gosling part. If you put that image of all these roles.
This
Not
one?
the other one. No, the other one. We'll get into
this one.
Real quick. Go back to that first one. So the fits in this movie are
Jesus
great.
Christ.
He's got on the bottom left, he's got the Kanye West, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy red suit going on. God. He's bringing that back. But then at the top and to the right, I'm going to try to find those 2 track jackets, but he's dressing like a Premier League manager, which is like,
I really hope you have you already photoshopped your face on these images? I hope not.
I was dressing like this yesterday. I have all you need is a track jacket and joggers, and that's what I'm saying. Like we need action stars. No, we need action stars. As much as we had with in this era now, as much as they had the undershirt and jeans on, for Die Hard and all that, we need joggers and track jackets. I'm not saying they all gotta dress like Tony Soprano or Tony D'Angelo, but keep it simple.
You're
comfortability.
You want your action heroes to make sure they can, not in tight jeans having to kick on.
You haven't, but I've seen 20 years of Vin Diesel in cutoff tees.
Yeah, I don't know much.
We can have a guy in a nice fucking track jacket and joggers and some Adidas on.
Yeah, and you spoken like a true fan of what's his face, Adam Cole, and the Undisputed Era.
It's more Jay White. Yeah, it's more Jay White.
Same. Hey, at a certain point,
but Jay White, Adam Cole is the gray man. It's Chris Evans, Ryan Gosling, my good friend, Adam Cole. Jay White was saying that whole time. I was hyping that. It's like the summer of white boy warfare is the gray man. And potentially Jay White versus Adam Cole, but Adam Cole had to get concussed, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
Fuck everything up. Fuck that. I guess hope he gets well.
But back to the other Gosling. So obviously, I legit have never seen The Notebook. So I did see Remember the Titans, and he's the bad cornerback in Remember the Titans. And anything he kind of did in the 2000s, I did see Murder by Numbers. Didn't really see much else, but this is the pretty boy who was in The Notebook and all that, and so I didn't care about him in the left. But come 2010, my guy goes on a fucking run.
He was purposefully making those decisions to be seen differently.
But he does Crazy Stupid Love, a movie. I'm like, oh, this is bad. Then I watch it again. I'm like, this is actually pretty good. Then you watch it again, this is great. It's a movie that grows the more time you rewatch it, which is the whole point of something like rewatchables, movies that you like at first, but then you grow to love after multiple viewings. Mm-hmm. Then he does Drive, which is inspires Orange Cassidy to have one of the best gimmicks in pro wrestling. That's a future White Noise episode. So again, keep paying the 1, keep paying the 10.
Jesus, look at that! Look at that ad placement.
But again, Drive is a guy who doesn't talk, just drives a car, drives it better than anyone else, and just fucking kills people with a hammer or just stomps the shit out of their face. He reteams with Nicholas Winding Refn in Only God Forgives, a trailer that had me hyped. I legit rented this movie from Dish in 2013 when my parents were away. They went to, I think, the casino and I'm like, hey, can I rent a movie? They're like, sure. And I rented Only God Forgives. And halfway through, I was just starting to become a real film head at the time.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, maybe this is something I thought this movie was going to be Ryan Gosling as a Muay Thai fighter. It's not. Yeah. However, I am someone who has grown to love the Nicholas Winding Refn. Let's just have neon and great tracking shots and no dialogue, and the images are speaking to you. News dropped on Friday as well that Nicholas Winding Refn is having a Netflix show later this year called Copenhagen Cowboy. So I'm going to be checking that out. I was one of 3 people probably to check out his Amazon show, Too Old to Die Young, which starred Miles Teller
Wait, no, my homie, shouts out my homie Angel. I've not seen it. My homie Angel told me about that. It sounds fucking crazy. Too Old to Die Young.
It's 8 episodes. It's 13 hours.
Yeah, I heard they were very long episodes.
Me, and you'll get a kick out of this, but me, Chris Ryan, and Miles Surrey are probably like the only people that give two shits about Too Old to Die Young.
I have it. The files are sitting on my hard drive. I may watch that soon because I've been intrigued, but I haven't had the time to devote to.
What was funny about Too Old to Die Young in subtext is that Gosling worked with Refn low-key back-to-back with Drive, Too Old to Die Young. Miles Teller worked with Damien Chazelle and Whiplash. Damien Chazelle chooses Ryan Gosling over Miles Teller for La La Land. It was originally supposed to be Miles Teller, then he dropped him for Ryan Gosling. I think because they already had the history with Emma Stone. Because he had dated Emma Stone when they made Crazy Stupid Love. I think they had broken up by the time they did Gangster Squad, which I rewatched kind of late Friday and yesterday. It's great. Gangster Squad is in this 2010s through 2020 era, but I'm not talking about Gangster Squad. No offense to Ruben Fleischer, that movie put him in Hollywood jail a bit. So Ryan Gosling makes La La Land, Back to the Image with Damien Chazelle, and then makes First Man, which is like the movie that the Oscars forgot for some reason, and it doesn't make any sense why they don't recognize like this masterpiece. It has probably one of the best opening scenes ever when he's on like the first flight mission. Again, like it's him quiet as Neil Armstrong, which they say is like he was like that in real life. He was just kind of like a stoic, quiet type guy who was this genius who just knew how to fly better than anyone else. But the funny thing about Too Old, he does these two projects with Chazelle. Nicholas Winding Refn picks Miles Teller to star in Too Old to Die Young. I'm like, are they throwing shade like two exes getting together to show the couple that broke up with each other to now like, hey, we're happier now? So after Only God Forgives, he does Place Beyond the Pines, which low-key inspired my look. And this inspired like every sad boy going forward. And low-key, because of sites like GQ, every men's fashion site, Ryan Gosling at the turn, him and Kanye West after 2010 became like, if you want to know how to dress, watch these two guys. And they'll go through different phases: suits, white tees, jeans, chinos, all of it. Like, if you want to know how to dress as a guy, let's look at these two dudes anytime they're out. Jean jackets, satin jackets, everything. Like, these are the innovators, the influencer of men's fashion from 2010 to 2020 is Ryan Gosling and Kanye West, which is, again, influenced a lot of white guys like myself, which is why there's always the jokes about only white guys are buying the Kanye West merch from Yeezy Gap, or the other one's paying those $4,000 for a fucking puffy jacket and a mask. But after Place Beyond the Pines, which is an interesting movie. It's a movie that like maybe thought it could have been an Oscar movie, but isn't. He's only in it for the first 40 minutes. That's better than the rest of the movie. He's in The Nice Guys. Great Shane Black.
Love The Nice Guys.
He's phenomenal. And again, this guy is funny as he is serious, and he can, which is what Crazy Stupid Love showcases as well. Like, he can be charming, every woman wants him, bachelor type guy. He can be detective who's down on his luck, but like is actually smart enough to solve the case. Great chemistry with Russell Crowe. This isn't Russell Crowe's like, I don't want to be Russell Crowe anymore, so I'll just be this. And Shane Black is probably the last good film Shane Black will make. It's basically Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, but in the 70s.
Right.
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is phenomenal.
Yes.
La La Land, again, even though I'm one of the people who actually did like La La Land, Moonlight is better.
Of course it is.
But I am like, well, let's not like discredit La La Land. Like, if it wasn't Moonlight, it could have been La La Land that year.
Moonlight is better.
It is, because Moonlight has probably two of the best scenes ever.
We're talking about the movies that were no disrespect to La La Land. Moonlight is better. But what were the best scenes? I'm sorry.
Well, the one I always think about every day and makes me fun of me for this one's with because I legit think what it was when Andre Holland and Trevante Rhodes are in the kitchen, and he's like, "Who is you, Chiron?" And then he looks back and he's like, "I'm me." But he's like, he's like, "I know you're lying to me because we had history in this and all that, because like he was making fun of him the whole time in the restaurant with like them fronts and that chain, like you ain't who you think you are and all that. And basically the first 20 minutes with Mahershala Ali are just one scene to me. I mean, it's
phenomenal.
The back and forth with him helping him in the whole in the light you look blue. He's like, that's your name? He's like, nah. And he's like, what? I'm from Cuba. Is what he says. Like he has that whole back and forth, and then the powerful scene at the kitchen table when he asks him what that word means, and he's like, it's a word meant to hurt people and all of that. It's just powerful stuff. Well deserved Oscar again. Bay Area legend himself, Mahershala Ali. Blade, which is what we'll get to them next week.
We'll talk about next week. Yeah.
There is a Blade Runner 2049, a movie that I think is divisive between you and I.
Yeah.
In the Denis Villeneuve, is he great? Is he overrated context?
I like Denis. I mean, the thing is I understand why, because he's a phenomenal director. It's just the movies I just don't care. At a certain point, I'm like, all right,
which is what bothers me the most about you.
I'm sorry, like
like we all have things in the five of us talking every day, potting all the time. We all have things. We have the same conversations over with Matt. It's always like, yo, you gotta give so and so their credit, whether it be Bret Hart, FTR. It's like, no, I don't. Or like fam will there'll be something that fam will always reiterate. Or like, I don't agree. And it's like that's one of the things I dislike about you, even though I love you. It's like you being anti Denis Villeneuve.
Give me a film I can sink my teeth into as a thing.
It's Sicario. It's fucking.
Talk about a dark movie where I couldn't see anything going on.
No, don't you dare talk about Roger Deakins like that.
I will say this though, that was what 2015.
2015 was a great movie year.
Was at the time the squad that I was working with, that Sicario was like the one film that divided everybody. There was like 6 of us on the team, and 3 of us were very against that film.
While I think Tumblr was falling off, I was getting into it, and there was like Film Tumblr, and this movie starts to be talked about at Cannes called Sicario. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I look into it, and then again, I'll go back to a comment this man made, but Chris Ryan is like, Sicario is amazing. He had this whole running bit on the Hollywood Perspectives podcast called Sicario, where he would just scream, and then he would carry it over to Narcos the next year. And then again, just anything in the border town.
Get it?
He was into.
I understand it, but
I comment on the Big Picture this week because they had the 2020 movie auction. I'd say the Big Picture is my favorite podcast, and Pam kicked me off the stream like a couple weeks ago when I said that, because like I can't say we're my favorite podcast because I'm on it, but like what Chris Ryan had said is like, it's because he wasn't hyped for The Gray Man. He's like, Ryan Gosling is the guy who made, he was in Only God Forgives, and now he's in The Gray Man. Like what's with that? But to me, I'm like, that's amazing. Like
it should have been.
The range, no, I mean like the range. Like I want you to be the funny, charming guy in Crazy Stupid Love and The Nice Guys, and then I want you to be in Blade Runner 2049, where like you don't say shit for 2 hours, but you fucking kill Dave Bautista in a fucking fight scene. Like I like the duality between you can be the serious actor, and again, I think people just love to photograph Ryan Gosling in these states of sadness and rain and blood covered, which is like that's me. Like
this has been you for the last couple of weeks walking around.
If you post the other picture of with all the guys, so the trend in Hollywood now, I guess
this is the scary one.
No, post it because like this is, I think I guess you could say the Shield inspired
everybody's in tactical gear.
The Nike, dry fit short sleeve shirt and a tactical vest, because Drake on the Drake and Three Amigos tour in 2018 had this look in white and black. And Staples had this when he performed at Coachella in 2018. And The Weeknd is currently dressing like this.
Yeah, now, right?
Right now for his After Dawn tour, because it's combining After Hours and Dawn FM. And again, Ryan Gosling is in the final act of The Gray Man when he shows down with fucking Chris Evans. He's dressed like Seth Rollins at the top, who returned at the Royal Rumble this year with the Sierra Hotel India Echo Lima Delta. Like it's I think it's a thing now, much like where guys want to rescue daughter figures. Like again, Thor: Love and Thunder. That's kind of was what it was at the end, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like that's what you wanted this movie to be. We'll get to that again next week.
I got to rewatch. I was a little tired during that movie. I got to rewatch.
My whole thing was like, once that movie was actually, when I found out that movie was actually about like relationships, I was just like, fuck you. Fuck you. Because I had just like, given again my circumstance, I'm like, I didn't come to the movies to see what I'm going through. Like in a Thor movie. Like
I already see the headache that's forming about this episode. No, I'm just kidding. It'll be funny.
I don't spend too much time on Thor: Love and Thunder because of that, and like again, like Taika Waititi, that man won an Oscar, and then again, kiss of death. Like Lena Waithe won an Emmy, and then tricked everyone to thinking she was good when
But wait, so this
much like guys wanting to rescue daughters, I think action stars want to have this look.
The weird thing is, it's like it's just the look though, right? Because Seth Rollins is probably more of a Lloyd than a Sierra Six.
Yes,
right?
well, especially this Seth Rollins. Yes, yeah. Seth Rollins in 2019, 2019 when he was the babyface champ that everyone hated, was the Gray Man.
No, it's interesting to see. I can't say that.
Once you saw that, you're like, holy shit, he's right. Like this is a look that for some reason is just in vogue.
When I see this and remember that again, seeing Seth, it's probably all coincidence, but seeing Seth come out with that, seeing The Weeknd, those images are from like last weekend or whatever, and then seeing Ryan Gosling in this now, it's definitely an odd coincidence. I don't know.
It's the thing where like your agent's like, what do you want to do? He's like, I want to do an action movie, but I want it to be like this. Like they don't want to be again like. I can't like Dwayne Johnson and Skyscraper made Die Hard.
They got to carry
legit.
The grenade.
Like he made Die Hard, but he's like, but I have a fake leg,
right?
Because it has to be different. I can't exactly be Die Hard. Is the thing when you're going from like you can't repeat the same. And no, that's what like you have to like.
I get it.
Like, should the Gray Man had just been Face Off? Like. That's what I'm trying. Like, I think it really should have been. It wanted to be Commando, like you're saying. Like
I don't. I mean, what's the movie where it's one person versus one person? Because Face Off, that was still he was a detective or some type of federal agent.
He's an FBI agent hunting down a terrorist, arms dealer. Yeah.
And he had bodies with him. Like he had a whole.
They had teams, but they were just red shirts for them to kill all of them off and then finally show down.
Like what's the film where it's mano a mano on
multiple times?
Yeah, like or at the very least that real cat and mouse. Like even if the beginning of the film was the way it was, and once Fitz springs Sierra 6 out, Lloyd gets the call, but instead of Lloyd making this plan to get to that fight, it's Lloyd. Nobody else is going to be able to do this job but me. I'm the former CIA. I'm also a psychopath, and I'm a torture guy. He could still go and have scenes with Fitz and have all of that family stuff wrapped up in it, but instead of making it John Wick in the middle of the film, he could have been the guy.
Well, I guess that's the thing is that again, John Wick faces Common once in Italy and then faces him back in New York.
Yeah.
Chapter 2. Or I guess again, Black Panther, like him and
Killmonger.
Killmonger and Shaw have on the King's. I forget what's it called. The King.
I need to rewatch that now.
I've been meaning to rewatch it, but again, given what happened, I didn't want to rewatch it right after in 2020. I forget what they call it, the battle to who will be king battleground, and then at the end they have part 2 when they both have suits and powers. It's like
it would have made more
the first time things are going to be different. Like that's what I'm saying. Like they at least had to show down once where him winning at the end, big with only 2 fingers and.
It makes things different, and it's very pro wrestling of them to not have that touch until the main event. But I think,
is probably why I'm like, oh shit, like but they already pulls the rug out from under me multiple times. Like,
but they could, you know how like you don't want Brock and Roman to touch too much before the SummerSlam main event, but they could have had the splitting off of the ring with the fucking jabroni security people, and they're on opposite.
That scene is when he sprays him with mace, and after when he gets out because he does the grenade trick, and then he's like he shoots the ground. He's like, "You're not leaving if you think you are." Like
that's a little too quick. There could have been like a firefight or something, and then them realizing that.
That's the thing. Like the other big action, the two big action scenes are the one on the airplane, which
the airplane scene was crazy.
It's better. It was so much better at home than in the theater. In the theater, I'm like, I can't see a fucking goddamn thing, and it's already bad enough that he has the flare. And again, it's my thing with action now. Like, why does everything have to be in the dark? Thor: Love and Thunder was all in the dark, and it didn't make any sense from the guy who had made Thor Ragnarok, where everything could be seen. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Even except the one that was in the Shadow Planet, that actually made sense, and that was actually cool.
Of course.
But like, again, like I get because you're on a plane, there won't just be a ton of first line, but like then he pulls the flare with smoke, so that makes it even harder, and then. There's kind of it's staged perfectly where guys are coming at him and he's just kind of staying his ground, fighting them off, and he knees the guy in the head, and it kind of cuts down to his feet, which is similar to Without Remorse, which came out last year when Michael B. Jordan fights all those guys in the cell when the water's flooding, but we only just see his feet. That's also kind of stuff, honestly, the cheating the action a bit, which is what I hate. Is that's what it's the horror thing. I mean, you and I have seen Nope and the whole hiding the monster, and at the end they just completely reveal it. Spoiler alert! But you hide it for so long, it's almost like, all right, are we gonna fucking do this already? But then, as a Nope, it's like once you show the monster, I'm like, I kind of wish you didn't because
it's definitely
dumb. Like,
but not even that. It's and I don't want to get too much excited
for Nope, yeah.
But I will say you're gonna get to the point with something like that where it's so covered, and that's the problem with the WWE. This is not a WWE podcast right now, but it get to the point where like with was it Eric Rowan with the monster, the rat in the box or whatever? Yeah. It's like they build it up for so long that when they at some point you have to reveal it. That reveal is either going to be fucking amazing for the people or it's going to be a big letdown. And sometimes you're not going to be interested in whatever the thing is supposed to be. And sometimes it's going to be perfect and everybody's going to love it. I think Jordan Peele probably he can get off with that because.
However, I mean, with that movie being shot by Hote Van Oytema looks just like a fucking masterpiece whenever he has the full vista landscape, especially Daniel Kaluuya on the horse.
You have to see
it's the best visual you'll ever see this year.
You have to see it in IMAX. You have to go see it. It was shot on 65 millimeter IMAX.
The whole sequence at the end is probably one of the best stage sequences of just him on the horse. And I think I'm also like, I'm only into horseback because Tarantino then kind of understood like what's kind of cool about horseback from the Western aspect. Like John Wick 3 had with the horseback scene, just fucking again, and that's where I'm disappointed. Like halfway through the gray man, so after this shut, like he beats all these guys up in the plane, and the plane catches fire, and then like it's going down, and it has an awful CGI Ryan Gosling falling through the air, catching on. It's very Matrix 2 or Neo fought where CGI Keanu Reeves fought 60 CGI Hugo Weavings, and it's just like this is a video game at this point. We're not like these guys exist. Where it's like again, because Mission Impossible set the bar too high. Tom Cruise and Henry Cavill jumped out of a plane 200 times to actually do that. They had the cameraman jump out and do that. And like the cheat code of Netflix, like, well, we have $200, but we don't have the means to do that. But like, but also like the Russo brothers aren't those guys as well. They're used to build, CGI backgrounds with blue screens and Josh Brolin not being there, but a guy wearing a Thanos head. And then you get the whole sequence in Prague after the explosion. Where he's handcuffed to this bench, and it kind of just goes too long. Where I'm like, and it's just this firefight. Where I'm like, did fucking Len Wiseman or Antoine Fuqua or Joe Carnahan direct this? Because this is like generic as fuck. Like the problem was that a lot of it is very generic from the story to the way it was shot. But they would try to throw cool shit in. It was a waste. There's one shot. There are all these drone following shots that are straight from Michael Bay's ambulance.
The one
said people were going to rip that off.
They were right. It was as Lloyd was running to the room to see, if Fitz and them were there. It goes from the bottom of this long staircase. You go up and you see Chris Evans running, and it follows him to the back. But I swear to God,
they did that 18 times in the movie for 6-second spurts, and it's just to follow cars or go up a building and then turn around. And I'm like,
you could have at least whipped it around his head so you could see him there, because like it ran up and then they cut when it gets close to his back, and then he just runs the camera the other way.
You hear water splash because he just jumped into the water to get after Six and the girl and Claire. It's like, at least I'm like, that's what I mean. Like, they're not those guys like Kevin Feige didn't hire. I mean, he had to hire Ryan Coogler because he was the only person who could get the job done. So
of course,
he hired Edgar Wright, and then Edgar Wright's like, I'm making an Edgar Wright movie, and he's like, I didn't hire you to make an Edgar Wright movie, and he shit canned him, and then.
But my thing is this, Trip. If it's one thing to tout that, Netflix made this $200 million Gray Man movie, but how much of that was spent with CGI and fingers off, and how much of that was spent with how expensive were these?
I know what you mean. Yeah, the glove. Yeah,
and I imagine they shot on location. Like that's a lot of that budget.
They shot during quarantine is the thing. That's what I'm also like. Is that the real reason there's not Gosling and Evans that much?
Maybe
is because their availability was only for these days, and it's like they can't be in the same.
It's possible.
I'm like. So that fits the story. Well, I'm like, that's kind of I'm like making the excuses for the movie. I'm like, oh, maybe that could be the reason. But also, like, there are just a lot of scenes where it's just two people talking. Because again, COVID or any movie from 2020, I guess, till next year, we should look at like how is a film due to restrictions and all that. Again, like the ultimate was Malcolm and Marie, where like they legit made that movie in quarantine because.
But that was all
two people on set.
That was all. But that was almost
that's a Netflix movie.
That film almost was born out of necessity. Remember, the story was quarantine happened as they were about to start making Euphoria season 2. From what I remember, Sam and I think it was Zendaya. She felt away because
she had an idea,
but a lot of it was still like there's these people who work on the set for Euphoria that aren't able to work because I believe they did pluck some of those people to work on this project as well. So it's interesting how those things. But if you look at a film like Red Note, another Netflix film, Red Notice, The Rock, Ryan Reynolds, and Gal Gadot, I believe that was all shot in Georgia, even though it technically takes place in a couple of different countries.
And I think a lot of that was shot. Had finished that up halfway through COVID, I think.
I'm pretty sure, but a lot of those interiors were sound stages. But I say that to say,
that's like when you watch them, you're like, yeah, this is a sound stage for real. Yeah.
I wonder if, because I don't know how many other Netflix films has Chris Evans been in. Like he may not be.
That's what I'm going to get to that. So like when I say like this is a Netflix movie, the only reason this movie is supposed to be a big deal for them and like why they're selling it during the NBA Finals and like now it's. No, they did. It's like the Gray Man's coming right after there's a timeout. Golden State versus Boston. It's like the Gray Man coming to Netflix. It's like it's Chris Evans, Ryan Gosling, and it's Wagner Moura, who is Pablo Escobar on Narcos. It's Jessica Henwick, who is in Iron Fist.
Oh, that's who she was. Okay, I can remember her face. Okay.
It's Regé-Jean Page, who was on Bridgerton, but then said, "I'm getting the fuck out because I want to be a movie star."
Pause. He was the worst. That I was not a fan of him.
Do you know he's wearing Jordan 6s?
I did not pay attention to his feet. I did not.
You have to really look because it's like I'm like at home. I'm like, are those? Because I see the 2 holes in the tongue. I'm like, are those?
I didn't see. The thing with him is he makes more sense in a Bridgerton than as.
I actually think he's playing the like. I can put the blame all on you. That's how it goes. He was
miscast.
He's playing the guy, William Atherton in Die Hard, or in Ghostbusters. Like you guys are. I can't trust these guys because they're all criminals.
But the thing is, like he's more of a.
He's the cliche of the cliches. Yeah, the young upstarts. Like
he shouldn't have been over her. He was the one who was kind of talking down to Shorty, and mind you, she was the one who ended up coming up. But I did. When I saw that the role that he was in, I was already tapping out. I'm not
him. We got Alfred Woodard, who was in Luke Cage,
and a number. Don't disrespect Alfred. Black people watch.
But I'm saying in regards to Netflix is what I'm saying. Like again, like their repertoire company. Even though it was weird that she was in Civil War in the summer and then Luke Cage in the fall as 2 different characters. So again, I guess the Russo brothers just must be fans of Alfred Woodard, which I don't blame them.
But that was, I mean, facts. But I think also that was probably because there was a split between Marvel TV.
Yeah.
It wasn't under Marvel. Yeah. But I'm saying it's under there now. But at the time, it was Marvel TV, Marvel Studios, and then like Marvel at Netflix, which felt like it could have been.
Mentioned Mahershala Ali was Cottonmouth, and now will be playing Blade. So, which I appreciate much more as someone who didn't finish Luke Cage.
After honestly, everything that Mahershala was in was the best parts of Luke Cage.
Yeah, that's why I think I stopped, because I think he dies early, right?
I
think I tapped out right before he died.
There's a whole different villain by the end of season 1.
Yeah, but who was the other person that again is another Netflix act? But that's what they'll tend to do, is just recycle people who are from their shows, from their previous movies, and that's where it's like they'll sell you with the stars at the front, but everyone else. Shea Wiggum, who was his dad in flashbacks, was in Death Note, and I think he's maybe been in 1 and 2 other Netflix things. Great actor.
He's a great character actor. He's a great actor.
Yeah. Fast and Furious alum, which is why I think they got him in this movie too, because by working with Stephen F. Wyndon. Julia Butters, who was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as a child actress, is good as Claire, but she's so much better in that movie when she basically shit talks Leonardo DiCaprio.
But the thing is she was given good material, and then she's kind of just weeping for her papa or whatever.
Did you check out? So the other news is he's like, fucking Quentin Tarantino has a podcast, which is like baffling to me. Did you check it out when I sent it to you?
No, I saved it. I've not. There's a couple of pods I need to listen to. I saved it though.
It's like what? It's like. But why? Like, don't you have the 10th movie to write and direct?
I don't think he's ready to do because that's supposed to be that's the ending. So I don't know. And what do you make with thoughts of like because they never did
Zorro.
There's a couple that you could revisit
the interview when we asked Gerard Carmichael about that, right? Yeah.
You could do
Kill Bill 3 when they say it's Nikita.
You could do
being the revenge.
John Travolta, Matthew
the Vega brothers.
Yeah, the Vega brothers.
Michael Madsen. I'm sorry, the real Mr. Blonde.
The Vega brothers. That's enough. There's like
Killer
2 or 3
things. Which was his Inglourious Bastards.
It's one of those things where it's like, would Tarantino rather, like I would assume that someone who's done so many different things would rather do like something he hasn't done before, like that one thing he wants to do.
He's going to write books after he's done making movies, and he wrote the Once Upon a Time Hollywood book, which has much more backstory and detail, and I think he said also goes after the story. Yeah. But him doing this podcast, when I saw this on Twitter as I'm kind of getting back into society after being away, I'm like, wait, what? And he's doing it with Roger Avery, who co-wrote Pulp Fiction with him. It's an interesting. I listened to the first episode, and they're talking about the movies. In the video archives store that they worked in, like because Quentin Tarantino bought the whole archive, so they're talking about the actual VHS movies that they have. So they're reviewing movies that you may or may not have seen. It's like they talked about Dark Star and Cocaine Cowboys, and like 2 movies I never heard of, and not the Billy Corben Cocaine Cowboys. But
damn.
To relate it back to Nope, I actually think Nope is like more of a Quentin Tarantino movie by Jordan Peele than. Especially with like the Hollywood stuff.
There's a lot. There's every couple of hours is another article coming out about what Nope really means,
but the whole Hollywood like history and the fucking Scorpion King joke, which is hilarious.
That's what
I think, and the whole SNL bit where he's like, it's Anna Gasteyer or Daryl. Like, I think Jordan Peele is just a nerd about stuff like Tarantino is.
No, coming
in a positive way.
Coming from the nerd who had to grab 2 Nope shirts at the screening.
I was hoping you had the hat. I was like, if you have the Haywood Hollywood Horses hat, I would kill you.
I saw the fucking Haywood Horses hat. I was like, I need that shit. I hit up the one rep. I was like, yo, I need that hat. But yeah, no, they made. I'm again. I geek out. This is the great granddad who was on the
first ever motion picture,
Then it's got like
what's good to me about it is the cinematographer is the villain from The Crow. Michael Wincott, and he was the villain in Eddie Murphy's Metro. If I'm shocking you with that,
I know you're not shocking me at all. My wife is a big fan of Metro. She's actually a big fan of Metro.
It's funny because at these 2 movies came, and that's the conundrum of like I saw The Gray Man last week because I'm like I'll go and see Nope this weekend too, but like I rewatched The Gray Man Friday. I put it on this morning too to get more prep. And like I said, I'm liking a little bit more, but it's really a C plus. There are really only just 2 good actions. I don't like the action with the fireworks in Bangkok because you can't see a damn thing when he's fighting Callan. I'm gonna be
honest with you. When that movie
You liked
started,
it?
no. When that movie started, and that was the scene it was when Anna de Armas, she's in, and I actually do feel bad.
She's great.
She's great. I wish. Did anybody ask her? She was running
Marilyn Monroe movie.
Hold on.
Coming out this year.
Hold on. She was running with an RPG, shooting rockets at a cap. I thought that was him at first, and when you realize it really was, I'm like, what type of training you got to go through to be running with a whole? Like again, it's a rocket launcher on her shoulder. That's nuts.
She's great with the whole you're invading my personal space, and then she plays that with him at the end.
I kind of wish she was in it more. I wish she had. I kind of wish
in No Time to Die, where like she has the best part of No Time to Die, when they're in Cuba and she kicks all those guys' asses, and he's like, "Didn't you say you just started training?" Like she fooled him by being again this kind of like you can't trust her, but it's because she's more than meets the eye. She'll be in the John Wick spinoff, Ballerina.
Which
is unfortunately going to be directed by someone I mentioned, Len Wiseman. So I'm like, the action in that is going to be subpar. It has a script written by Emerald Fennell, who did Promising Young Woman. So I'm looking forward to that. As someone who enjoyed that film.
I'm a big I'm a big John Wick fan, so I'm excited for that. But I'm also just once we mentioned Knives Out earlier, I'd seen her. I didn't realize I'd seen her in that really bad Keanu Reeves movie, Knock Knock. Because ironically enough, she had blonde hair. But when I saw her in Knives Out, I was like, nah, she's different. I mean, she's obviously, an attractive woman, but you could tell that she was different. She had good timing with her comedy, and she plays a totally different character in that than anything else she's really done. So I don't know. I've had my eye on her for a bit, and I like the fact that she's getting into more. She's willing to take on these action roles. I hope we'll see.
I think now we're at a hole where like Charlize Theron, Angelina Jolie. Angelina Jolie and now Charlize Theron are in Marvel movies, and we'll speak about that next week. But the action heroine needs like the main. We need again the Keanu Reeves, the Arnold Schwarzeneggers. I mean, that's what I'm saying about like Gosling. Gosling finally he waited till he was about 40 to be like, I'm gonna be the action guy, like. Whereas like Chris Evans was basically Captain America, so that's action in itself. So like he tried a few dalliances, but like Chris Evans really wants to be like the serious actor. He's the guy who's
like you mentioned earlier. It was funny to see him play the smart guy in the film. I imagine he's probably typecast as the attractive everyman. I can save the woman and the little girl, and all. That's why he was Captain America. But
that's like something like Cellular, which is one of my favorite like. Even though it's not really trash, but like a trash classic, where he's like this young slacker guy a regular everyday slacker guy who just has to save Kim Basinger from being held hostage by Jason Statham. It's an underrated.
Sounds like a good Saturday at 4 o'clock.
It is. It is. It's just like nice. Again, as someone who enjoys thrillers more than horror, and I know the Halloween trailer dropped, and not as someone who doesn't like horror like that, and ironically hasn't seen any of the Halloweens. I didn't see John Carpenter's original, and I haven't seen the David Gordon Green. So what we'll do for Halloween Ends is I'll watch those 3.
Wait, Drip. This is what we're going to do.
Black Wrestling Podcast Club. The other, your show, your White Noise on the Patreon, and we'll do Halloween talk.
The thing is
because I've always been curious, but I just haven't done like Halloween was on my parents' DVR for the longest time. I just never got to it.
The first Halloween, in terms of we got to get out of it soon. The first Halloween film is good in terms of just being like an iconic. It's actually one of the better Halloween films in general because they're purposefully being very vague because they wanted to just be like, and at some point this kid just went mad and he's been going mad for the rest of his life. Outside of the opening sequence in Halloween 2, you can throw the rest of those Halloween movies away from me. So what we'll do... I'm not saying we're going to do... I'm just saying we're doing John Carpenter's and then the reboot that's connected just to Halloween. We're not doing You have to.
Or
we're going to do Halloween 1978. We're going to do Halloween 2018, and then we have to do Halloween Kills. Halloween Kills is not a good film. I'm going to warn you that now.
I know you were disappointed last year, but I saw the woman is killed by the ricochet of the gun in the door or whatever.
The thing is, that scene is hard. The car scene is probably the hardest. The deaths in that movie are great, and they're probably some of the better ones of the whole series. But the actual story is not good.
Yeah.
I'm here.
I was freaked out when he was slipping on the garbage disposal and putting her in it, because that's a real life fear I have. Every time I had to stick my hand down there, like even though the switch was off, I'm looking like
Jesus. All right. Well,
but we're about to wrap that. So again, the Gray Man, I mean, if this is a franchise going forward, will I care? I mean, Ryan Gosling he's fucking Ken in the Barbie movie, which
that's right.
I won't be surprised if that movie's actually good because it's Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. But like, he looks like me now. He brought back the blonde hair. He's getting dressed like Orange Cassidy. The set photos are amazing.
I have that one film I have no desire to see, but yeah, shouts to Ryan Gosling.
I might have to if everyone that's involved. It's Margot Robbie, Zendaya, Simu Liu, Will Ferrell.
It's tongue in cheek, or it's gonna be like.
I have the theory that it's gonna be like the Lego Movie,
but live action.
Yeah, but I think it's gonna be like, because in the credits it says that it has like multiple people playing Barbie, so it must be a thing where like. She's Bart, and I think Simu Liu might also Shang-Chi is also playing a Ken. So I think it's the thing where like they're living in the world, and she might realize that she's
different than everybody else. You're saying?
I think it'll be it might be The Matrix meets
or it's a cool
Truman Show.
Have you ever seen Cool World? I believe it's from '92. It was the early '90s Brad Pitt film. Brad Pitt, but Kim Basinger was in it, but she was voice acting like a very vivacious. It was a weird world where the realities of cartoons and humans would interact, and there were people that could go between. And Brad Pitt had to solve a murder, I believe, in the Toon World.
I think it might be like how. Well, you saw Nope, so you know that one. The Oppenheimer trailer played right before Nope. It was basically like a fucking. Like how there's like future lyric video. It was basically that has a trailer with the time clock and like Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan made Mank. That's what he did with this movie. He made Mank, and no one cared about Mank except Sean Fennessy. Like that was it. Like Mank is good, but it's
A couple of homies are here, but it's Nolan. Not Mank, but they're interested in Oppenheimer, but it's mostly because
I will check about him and say like if it's really in black and white, like the trailer is, like Christopher Nolan is gunning for that Oscar to shove it in Warner Brothers' face. Like
I don't know if I'm ready for that right now. But
the other trailer was "Don't Worry, Darling," and the whole point of "Don't Worry, Darling" is like she's realized. Did you see that trailer before Nope? Because that's the point. Did you skip trailers?
No. Listen. Okay. I saw.
Oh yeah, you did press screening. Yeah.
Before it, like the Monday before it came out, so they just showed the movie. And my son was gonna go see it with my sister-in-law, but they ended up not going. He wants to see Nope, so I'm probably gonna take him at some point. I'm glad there's new trailers.
The thing about Don't Worry, Darling, both trailers are 3 minutes. Huge issue for me. Like this movie doesn't need 2 3-minute trailers. But I think the movie sounded like she realizes that she's like in a fake kind of like utopia suburb. I think that might like to get back to Ryan Gosling as Ken in the Barbie movie. That might be what it is. Or like again, hi Ken. I think, and then she realizes like something's wrong. I think Will Ferrell will be the villain, like he was in the Lego movie, where he's Mr. Business, and then he's the dad in the upstairs when the kid's in the basement. Like I think it'll be something like that.
You might have saw.
Yeah, if the Gray Man, if we get, because the next book is on target, but I also think they did what they did. Even though I haven't seen the Uncharted movie, people say they took all the elements from the games to make the Uncharted movie.
They said they have more to do, but there were a number of things from games.
Yeah, they picked and choose ones, like the famous scene of like the crates falling out the plane was from like the third game, and they put that in this one. So I think that's people are like, you're not doing it right. Like what the fuck's wrong?
It's one of those, you're forcing Easter eggs and nostalgia.
Well, to sell, because if that movie flopped, it might not have made, but it actually made money, which was the shocking thing. So like Sony's like Uncharted 2, because Tom Holland, we're making your Fred Astaire movie, we're making your fucking this is your check. You're one for me, one for them, as Michael Wincott said in Nope. Like, I do one for me and I do one for them. But
I forgot he was doing a Fred Astaire movie. That's crazy.
But I think Ryan Gosling, because does Netflix have the money again to make $200 million movies with how their stock and all that, and then might pivot into some other stuff? Or are they going to be interested in making another $200 million movie after critics didn't like this? And has anyone else said like, "Hey, I watched The Gray Man to you," besides me?
I'll say this: when I checked Rotten Tomatoes, the last time I checked Rotten Tomatoes, the critic score was 52 and the audience score was 89%.
That's deserving. It's a 50. It's again.
I say that to say you're going to have to go to social. If people are talking nice about The Gray Man and positively about it, Netflix is going to look at that before anything else, especially because it only ran in theaters for a week. They're not worried about box office returns. They want to make sure that somebody will watch the second one if it comes out. And if we just did a whole pod, you talked about, it throughout a number of different iterations. So I wouldn't be surprised if you at least got a second film. I don't know if it's strong enough to do, like, I don't know how many books there are. I don't know if they're doing that many books into movies, but I would definitely see, they're doing a second film for that Charlize Theron movie, right? Where they were all immortals and the black.
My God. That was better than I thought it would be. The Old Guard, that movie did not need a second one.
Not the Kiki, but like if the Old Guard 2 can get the green light, I'm assuming Sierra 6.
I bet that movie only cost like $80 million.
Yeah, it was
the 200.
Charlize was like the biggest name in that, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But all right. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I thought I learned my lesson from F9 and then No Way Home, where it's like I wasn't getting as hyped for No Way Home because I'm like, I don't want to be let down. And then even though I haven't rewatched No Way Home since seeing it the one time in the theater, which is something I got to do with this episode coming up. Because then I looked at it, I'm like, oh my God, it was amazing. Like, it was great. Building your expectations high, especially for movies or TV, is always the tricky part, because it's like, again, they're selling us one thing with this kind of footage and not the other. Like, Wakanda Forever might be a completely different movie, but that trailer, fuck. And it won't be, because again, it's Ryan Coogler, but I'm just saying, like,
the drip.
There was a reason we were kind of scared with Thor: Love and Thunder, and then when we actually saw, we had a reason to be worried.
I'm gonna say this, and we're going to close it out.
Yeah.
If you didn't get overly hype about the things that you liked, I don't think you would drip. So I encourage you to get that hype. I just please just kind of maybe kayfabe it.
No, I'm shouting to the world. Fuck Gray Man.
Home, just make sure like, damn, this may actually be ass. But nah. So I guess that's the Gray Man conversation. Next week.
Again, check it out. It's been a week since it dropped. Run the numbers up. Netflix has Ana de Armas on the cover image. I'm like, but she's not the Gray Man. I guess you want to sell Ana de Armas, which also makes sense. But
you also need to do. There's a search Vox did a video about A/B testing posters, so they probably put
I know.
Ana de Armas is on there because of you. Whatever you selected, that's why her face is on there. And that's, I'm not saying it's the bad.
Again, she'll be Marilyn Monroe in that blonde movie, which they say is going to be, it's NC-17. But yeah, this was White Noise episode 6. Crazy episode. Sierra 6. Oh wow!
Sierra, I got you, Drip. Don't worry.
We'll be back, like I said, weekly going forward. As close as we can. If something were to happen, we'll at least have stuff in the bank to drop, ready to go. But thank you all for supporting Black wrestling in general when I haven't been there. Shouts out to Fam, Matt, Mimi, you, Cal. Again, you're the Donald Fitzroy of Black wrestling.
I'm no longer the Mr. McMahon of Black wrestling. I cannot.
No, you can't say that going for it. But no, I mean, where can people find you on social media? And
at Cal on Twitter, at Black Wrestling on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Blackwrestling.com is a website. YouTube.com/Black Wrestling. Get them numbers up. We almost there. And then we want to keep going.
I still think if we get to 990, I think whatever day is the Saturday going forward, we have to do the 10-hour telethon of us live to get 10 more subscribers to reach 1,000. Remember I pitched that idea. I'm like, we bring in guests, we cycle through, we talk about whatever. We have like.
Wait.
Streamer can hold for 10 hours.
Wait, Drip, I'm gonna say this. All right, I'm gonna say this. I will agree to a 10-hour stream in the hopes to get a subscriber an hour. But I will say this. If we start that stream, anytime in that time, we get 10 subscribers and hit that mark before the 10-hour mark.
We get the 10. No. we got to keep making 10 more and 10 more, because then it'll be a thing like these people are going to go for 10 hours until they get. But they already got them. They can't stop. Won't stop.
Like, I'm saying at a certain point during that stream, I might get off camera. I might be making 10.
We'll cycle through. We'll do rotations, but like I'll reenact. We'll reenact skits from movies. We'll do.
Wow, you wild. That you're wilding. You're wild. Now we'll Did you want to hit the people with your socials before we got out of here, Drip?
Again, now that I'm back on social media for now, you can find me on Twitter at Davis, aka Drip, Instagram Davis DC. On YouTube, because it will live there forever. Banks versus Davis, some great content there. Again, with Cal from before, with Mimi, with Fan, with Matt. And hopefully in the future, I mean, my goal hopefully is when Fast X, that trailer drops, Banks comes over here and him and I discuss it while you sit in the corner like,
wondering why y'all caring about some nonsense.
I mean, and because Justin Lin left, and Louis Leterrier brought, and and all that, but
I can already feel the headache forming for that episode.
Black Wrestling on YouTube is the most important thing. We're at 895 right now is the last time I had checked. Best of 2021 Part 2 had dropped. I got to start editing Part 3 and Part 4 and some other stuff. Again, we've had some great interviews. Shout out to the Renegade Twins.
We'll pick those up. Maybe we should get some interviews for White Noise at some point. We'll figure that out.
I'm thinking of bringing some guests. I'm not a mover and shaker like just because I'm like, I don't think people
send an email or the DM.
There might be people who I'm doing again. I kind of owe Shan for doing the intro, but I also think Shan would be great for this convo. He and I had a convo after Doctor Strange one night about like he's like, "What'd you think?" I'm like, "Oh, I loved it. Like it was fucking great." I'm one of the few people who love Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. So I'm like, this is a great movie. And everyone's like,
We'll figure it out. White Noise may become a movement over here. We'll see what happens.
That's what Wiseman number 3 wants it to be. It can be any. Stop it. It can be anything. Like
That's what's up.
We'll see y'all next time. Peace.